the amazingly diverse and tourist-friendly country with the only passway through one side of America to the other on the sea. With beautiful animals to admire and plants to discover, Panama is an amazing country and is different from any other one you could find on this earth. One of its main questions is the issue with bordering countries due to the massive amount of trade that goes on. The amazing country of Panama, a mesmerizingly beautiful place with thousands of must-see locations to visit and remember, especially the amazing Panama Canal. Try not to miss the jaw-dropping Carnival Day Panama, with just enough room in between Colombia and Costa Rica. There are some problems occasionally with Colombia and Costa Rica, but not many. Panama and the Central American countries had signed bilateral partial preferential trade agreements in the 1970s. Central American countries and Panama agreed to initiate negotiations towards a free trade agreement on 12th of July 1997. Negotiations were initiated in July 1998, but were stopped in March 1999. Negotiations were relaunched in March 2000 at a meeting of ministers in Central America and Panama. The first round was held in April 2000 in Guatemala. Negotiations were concluded on 16th May 2001 after 8 rounds. The following year, bilateral negotiations took place between each of the Central American countries and Panama. El Salvador and Panama concluded their own peace treaty in January 2002, signing a bilateral protocol to the agreement on March 6, 2002. Honduras and Panama concluded their bilateral negotiations and signed a bilateral protocol to the agreement on 15th of June, 2007. Costa Rica and Panama did the same on 22nd of June, 2007, and signed a free trade agreement on 7th of August, 2007. Further rounds of negotiations have been held between Panama and the other Central American countries. The 7th round of negotiations between Nicaragua and Panama was held in Panama City on 12th of October, 2007. On 15th January 2009, Nicaragua and Panama signed a bilateral protocol to the agreement. But that's not even the end. There are disputes inside of Panama as well, especially near the Panama Canal. There's a zone called the Canal Zone, a major target for outbreaks in the conflict and diversity of people contributing to the different ideas and thoughts of unfairness and mainly just meaningless confrontations. In 1903, Panama and Colombia separated into their own countries, but way before that, on November 28, 1821, Panama was separated from Republic of Gran Colombia, made up of Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, and Panama. But that all started long after Panama was founded by Rodrigo de Bastidas in 1501.
The Panama Canal is one of the biggest engineering feats of all time. It was made to make the trip through the Americas less dangerous. The road to make the Panama Canal was just as hard, with many roadblocks along the way. The negotiations leading up to making the Panama Canal and the road to the Panama Canal were really long. One of the many blocks was a riot called the Watermelon Riot. When people first hear the name, they think, why is it called the Watermelon Riot, and what does it have to do with the Panama Canal? The Watermelon Riot occurred at the time when a lot of the negotiations for building the Panama Canal were going on. This meant that there were a lot of Americans in Panama at the time. The station that the Watermelon Riot took place in was a ferry station on Tobago Island off the coast of Panama. There were U.S. ships that took commuters and negotiators to Panama City. At the time, Panama City had no wharves, so they had to stop at islands like Tobago, just off the coast, and the people had to take the ferry the rest of the way to Panama City. The problem was the ferries could only take passengers over to the city at high tide. This meant that all the Americans had to wait in the station for the ferry to be able to leave. Jack Oliver was one of these Americans. He was drunk, as most of them were, because they had gone to the cantinas before they left for the station. He went to one of the vendors at the station and took a watermelon. Jack Oliver refused to pay for the watermelon and pulled a gun on the vendor. One of the bystanders saw this whole thing and started wrestling with Jack for the gun. The gun went off while they were fighting for it, and from there the Watermelon Riot was inevitable. The fighting went on for a while before the police were called and came. After the police came, a shot was fired and hit the cop. From there, the riot got worse because the police were involved too. To stop the riot, a whole train full of armed railroadmen had to come and stop the riot. There were a lot of consequences because America had 13 deaths while Panama only had 3. America demanded many things because of the amount of casualties. In response to the riot, the United States made the following proposals. 1. That the city of Panama and Colón had to be free cities and that they were governed under the sovereignty of Panama, and jointly they will control a strip of land 20 miles wide from ocean to ocean, with the railroad as the central line. 2. The Republic of New Granada, which was then the name of Colombia, had to transfer several islands in the Bay of Panama to the United States to use them as naval bases. 3. New Granada had to transfer its rights on the Panamanian Railroad to the United States. 4. New Granada had to pay compensation for damages or the loss of life and the destruction of property. The Republic of New Granada, which controlled Panama at the time, accepted these requests. This allowed America to get more control of Panama and get one step closer to building the Panama Canal.
The country of Panama, a relaxing country in Central America where there is clear turquoise waters, palm trees, and a beautiful city. But a question that a lot of people are asking is, how does the geography of Panama affect the people? Today we are going to jump straight into Panama's geography and how it affects Panama. When Columbus found Central America, the first settlers were from Colombia. Once they found Panama, they were very excited to be part of Central America. Most of the people are religious, and the religions are Roman Catholic 85% and Protestant 15%. Outside of religion, Panama has Spanish as their official language, which is 86%, and 14% English. In Panama, their culture and climate is pretty important. Their climate is very tropical and rainy. It has a big rainforest with wonderful creatures. It is also very hot and humid. Panama averages 70 inches of rain a year and gets rain May through November, which is usually 7 to 9 months long. In the 7 to 9 months that Panama gets rain, it is usually heavier in the Caribbean than in the Pacific. Panama is not only rainy, but is very warm with an average temperature of 84 degrees. In autumn, Panama gets a lot of wind that comes from the southwest of the Pacific, usually in the center of Panama. In Panama, there is no need to have warm clothes because it is so warm. Panama's culture is very interesting with different people all over the world, with mostly an African American culture and mixed American and white as 70%, also American as 6%, and West Indian as 14%, and last of all, 10% white. Panamanians are very good with making pottery and make them for traditions. In Panama, flora and fauna is all over the rainforest. The rainforest is filled with wonderful creatures and wonderful plants that no one ever sees. It has grasslands, scrubs, and crops. It's also made of 40% wood. The crops that Panama has is corn, beans, and tuber plots. But Panama specializes in banana plantations because it is perfect to grow there. The country has 218 mammal species, 226 species of reptile, 164 amphibian species, and 125 animal species found nowhere else in the world except for Panama. Panama also has 940 avian species, which is the largest number in North America. In the rainforest, there is many seams for the animals to sit around and drink water. The flora and fauna is a very amazing part of Panama to see. In Panama, the border is a big part to keep Panama safe from other people trying to sneak into Panama. Panama's borders are Colombia and Costa Rica. Colombia is attached to South America, so people could be coming from down there with no permission. Panama's ocean border
is the Caribbean Sea and the North Pacific Ocean. Panama is also divided into 10 provinces. The biggest province is Darien, that is 16,671 kilometers squared. Panama's population in the 10 provinces is 2,315,47 people. Panama's border is very important to keep the country safe. The country of Panama, a relaxing country in Central America where there's clear turquoise water, palm trees, and a beautiful city that I have learned so much from researching about. I hope you have learned a lot after reading this. The end.
Panama, made up of 6 letters, 3 syllables, 3 vowels, and 3 consonants. But it's more than just a word. It's one united country, one leader, one government. Panama is a beautiful country with a stunning landscape, an impressive canal, and a breathtaking culture, which is wonderful and all, but I'm here to tell you about something so much more intricate. The government and how the governmental history and events have formed the government that it is today. A constitutional representative democracy. The government is actually quite simple. The head of government and chief of state is Juan Carlos Guerrero. He is the representative, main leader, and president. Like the U.S., there are also 3 equal branches: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Under the legislative, there are 71 members, all lawmakers. They also have elected officials that are a main part of this branch. They are both elected for 5-year terms by the people. Under the executive branch, you have the chief of state, in this case the president, the head of government, again the president, and the cabinet, which is appointed by the president. Finally, the judicial. They are the Supreme Court of Justice with 9 members that are selected by the president for 10-year terms. The government of Panama was officially declared a constitutional representative democracy when they were still joined with Colombia in 1886. Because Panama was joined with Colombia for so many years in the past, they had the same government, language, and culture. The first president of Panama was named Bellissimo Portas Bajonas, and he was only 22. He was the first president after they were separated from Colombia. There were many presidents before and during, but only when they were joined with a group of countries called Gran Colombia. After that collapsed, only Panama and Colombia were connected, and Colombia took over Panama. Although Bellissimo Portas Bajonas was the first official president of Panama, the real leader's name was Manuel Amador Guerrero. He was the president in the early years of Panama, so Dr. Guerrero was the one who helped Colombia form Panama's and Gran Colombia's society, government, and economy. Colombia was in control and told Panama what to do, so basically they followed Colombia's directions and were told what to do, hence breaking apart with them so many times so that Panama could raise their own country. Colombia didn't want Panama to become its own country, but that wasn't a problem because France and USA was on Panama's side because they both wanted to build the canal and have Panama be a free country so that they could do that. In 1968 to 1992, a military took over, changing Panama to a dictatorship. The dictator took over when Panama was at their weakest point, with their president, Alfred Andres Madria, being dead. Manuel Rija became the leader, not by winning like an election like he would have, but by becoming a dictator and taking over. He was actually the second person to try and take over Panama. The first was named Omar Torrijos. Just 10 quick days after, and he was removed. And Manuel Noriega came. Noriega took over by using the military and forcing the people of Panama against their will. He corrupted the government, political life, and economics. In 1989, George W. Bush came in and saved Panama in a military operation called Just Cuz. In this operation, the U.S. military took the dictator out, and a new president returned as the leader and representative. Because of this, the government now does not allow any military actions in government and or politics. Panama Canal has been an influence in Panama's government and has helped shape Panama's government. Because the U.S. built the Panama Canal, they have a tight connection that forms the government because of the trades that we make. They were connected, so that makes both countries so much stronger. In the time that the canal was built, the U.S. was trying to become one of the most powerful nations. To do this, they needed to win their wars. The main strategy was to get to the east to west quickly and gain control of both oceans. So, the canal was a perfect option. By having the Panama own the canal and the U.S. build it, it brought tons of money in and was a huge success for Panama. That changed the way of the government because they tried to make it more focused towards the canal because that brought in the money, and you need money to strive and become a stronger nation. All of these parts lead up to one question that we've been trying to answer this whole time. How has the government and governmental history and events formed the government of today? Well, I think that one of the main influences has been Colombia, because they were joined for so many years, as I said before. They have been affected by what the leader thought at the time and what they were told to do. The canal has also been a huge influence because it brought in so much money that pushed Panama's leaders to form parts around the canal. For example, when they have money, they think of how it could benefit the canal to benefit them in the long run. Even the military taking over changed Panama because they don't want that to happen again, so they changed laws and ideas to form the picture that they wanted to protect their country. All in all, there are so many parts such as the canal, Colombia, and the military taking over that have formed Panama and their government.